Right now, another tropical system is forming in the eastern Pacific, and it could even strengthen into another hurricane. But what happens after this one could be a game changer in the tropics. In this video, I'm going to show you exactly why that is and what to expect over the next week or two. The NHC is issuing advisories on Potential Tropical Cyclone 4E. This is the first advisory right now. Maximum sustained winds are at 35 miles an hour, minimum pressure at 1006 millibars, moving west-northwest at 7 miles per hour. And then behind that, there's yet another tropical disturbance with a 30% chance of tropical cyclone formation in the next 7 days off the coast of Central America. With Potential Tropical Cyclone 4E, this one could get close to the southwestern coast of Mexico and cause impacts, including the potential for tropical storm force winds. Here's a look at the current satellite imagery of Potential Tropical Cyclone 4E. Not very organized looking right now, but that's expected to change over the next 12 to 24 hours or so, as it is expected to become a tropical storm. And notice there is a lot of showers and thunderstorms just off the coast of Mexico, so this is already kind of causing impacts, and it'll potentially cause impacts within the next 48 hours. And then we also have, behind 4E, we have still all this rain across Central America, all these showers and thunderstorms. There's still tropical potential for another system behind this one, but behind 4E. But also, this is just all this rain is going to cause a lot of impacts in and of itself. The NHC actually has key messages for Potential Tropical Cyclone 4E, and this is actually, once it actually becomes a tropical storm, it'll get the name Dalila, and the outer bands are expected to bring heavy rainfall to the southwestern coast of Mexico through this weekend, with flooding and mudslides possible, and along with potential tropical storm force winds. But the rain, they're showing about 4 to 6 inches of rainfall along the coast. Here's the NHC forecast cone, and they're showing a tropical storm within 12 hours by tonight, and then going into Friday, it strengthens all the way going into Sunday, when by Sunday, it actually is forecast to become a strong tropical storm. The NHC is showing 70-mile-an-hour winds at this point, but it could even reach hurricane intensity. We'll have to see. Like, some of these systems haven't quite intensified quite as much as the initial forecast has shown. Like, sometimes at first the forecast models go over the top with the intensification, and then it doesn't necessarily do all that. But we'll see what happens. And there's the peak intensity is probably somewhere around Sunday before it actually moves off into cooler water and quickly dissipates. But there's actually a tropical storm watch. You see this yellow area? There's a tropical storm watch here for the potential for tropical storm force winds from the outer bands of 4E, or Potential Tropical Storm Dalila. Here's the spaghetti models for this storm, and basically showing the same thing pretty much. It's going to move along the southwestern coast of Mexico, but it's not going to make any direct impacts before turning west out into the middle of the Pacific Ocean. The intensity guidance is showing a mid to high end tropical storm is most likely, even potentially a low end hurricane. Like, there's models showing between 48 and 72 hours that this could reach hurricane strength. And, that's definitely possible. We'll have to see how much it's able to intensify. And really, my intensity forecast is basically the faster it's able to organize right here over these warm water temperatures, like 30 degrees Celsius, that's 86 degrees Fahrenheit. So sea surface temperatures in the mid to upper 80s, potentially in this region. The faster it's able to organize under this, the quicker it could intensify. It'll have a better opportunity of becoming a hurricane before, once it reaches this area with the cooler waters that drop off very quickly, it's done. This is the area for intensification. Once it from like here to here, really to like here, and then that's it, And so there's that. But the H-Wharf model actually intensifies this into a hurricane. And it does also follow the NHC forecast cone, and they're showing by Friday afternoon definitely a strengthening tropical storm, and then Saturday evening, Saturday night, it's a hurricane with potentially winds of around 75 to 80 miles an hour. And then after that, then it does start to weaken down on Sunday. And here's a look at the GFS model, just kind of showing the storm system. And basically what I said, it has a window to intensify, especially going into Saturday morning, Saturday afternoon, where we could get to that peak intensity before it starts weakening down, especially Saturday night going into Sunday. And pretty much by Monday night, it's pretty much non-existent. But other than some heavy rain along the coast of Mexico and potential tropical storm force winds, or at least tropical storm force wind gusts, other than that, there's not really going to be any direct land impacts. But then notice what happens. We have a lot of rain just soaking Central America, even going into June 20th. And then there is a slight potential for tropical development, but the GFS is not really showing anything. And then there's just all this rain across Central America, and some of this could actually reach the southwestern US at some point. So that'll be interesting to see by the kind of the last week of June. Really starts reaching the southwest before potentially another tropical system forming in the eastern Pacific. That'll be interesting. But the GFS actually has taken away that big hurricane that it was showing for like weeks in the Western Caribbean or the Gulf kind of region. Now it's not really showing any tropical activity in the Atlantic side of things. So it's like, the GEFS ensembles, they are showing potential in the Eastern Pacific, and they are still showing potential in the Atlantic, but it's a lot weaker. They've really toned it down. You know, a few ensembles showing potentially a tropical system moving into Texas, maybe by June 24th, another system going towards Cuba, kind of in the Caribbean, going into the Gulf. But other than that, like, they've really toned down the tropical potential over the Atlantic. Like, there's still potential in the Eastern Pacific, but the Atlantic is really toned down on the GEFS ensemble. And then the Euro ensemble is showing decent potential for our Eastern Pacific system within the next 7 days. So that is lining up with what the NHC has. But notice nothing. There's nothing at all in the Atlantic at all. Like, they're not showing anything. And it's like, okay, but why? The sea surface temperatures aren't a problem. They're all in this region, especially in the Western Caribbean, the Gulf. These are the warmest sea surface temperatures in the Atlantic, pretty much. And they're definitely favorable for hurricanes in the mid 80s, just a little bit cooler than what's happening in the Eastern Pacific. But, you know, low to mid 80s across this region is definitely favorable for tropical activity. So there's other things going on. There's Saharan dust. There's some Saharan dust. It's not extreme, but there is some significant dry air and Saharan dust that's a problem. But also, here's a look at the precipitable water, just the moisture across the Atlantic. Notice there is some dry air, but notice the tropical moisture is really just getting pushed through. It's not able to spin into much of anything. You do have some tropical waves forecasted in the Atlantic over the next week, but the only place where you're starting to see some spin and kind of rotation trying to turn into something is over the Central American gyre region. And this can generate some systems, but it seems like it's almost running into the land. If that happens, like if the moisture is able to stay over the water, then of course these storms could organize into something. But if it just runs into the land and doesn't really have an opportunity to organize, that's going to be a problem for tropical development. But then all this moisture, notice it just kind of flows. It actually, the thing is, we have a lot of high pressure over the Atlantic, so then that's just pushing everything really almost into Central America, also the Eastern Pacific, but also just turning it into Mexico, even the southwestern US, just feeding all this tropical moisture and rain and thunderstorms into these regions, which is gonna just lead to a lot of rain over the next week, and even past that. We have, even going to June 24th, we have, it's like 2 weeks from now, we have almost 2 weeks from now, still the same kind of thing happening, with moisture just being pushed through the Atlantic but not really turning into any tropical systems. And also moisture will go through the Caribbean to some extent, but still not doing anything all the way into June 28th on the GFS model. So potentially a quiet June for the Atlantic with no tropical systems. But then what happens after that? Well, here's a look at the 40-day forecast with the MJO. On the CFS model, we have the, right now, favorable over the Eastern Pacific, also the Atlantic, but not really doing anything there. But for the Eastern Pacific, yes, it's definitely favorable, and we're seeing tropical activity. Next week, June 17th, not really favorable. It's neutral to slightly unfavorable, so there could be a pause in tropical activity. But then once we go to June 22nd, June 27th, it's slightly favorable actually, and then it's neutral for July 2nd, and then going into July, this will change as we go further out. This is less reliable of a forecast signal, but then it's looking slightly neutral to slightly unfavorable for July 2nd, and then once we go through July, it almost looks like that pattern could continue, where we have maybe neutral conditions, maybe slightly favorable conditions over the Central America region. Kind of, it's like the MJO is just kind of hung up in Central America, not really too much in the Atlantic, but it's sort of more towards the Eastern Pacific than anything else. So yeah, it's kind of interesting. We'll have to see what happens over the next few weeks, but yeah, that's pretty much it. So thanks for watching this video. If you like this video, please be sure to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and turn on notifications for more updates on the tropics. Extreme Weather Zone